And so I told myself, why don't we talk about Antonietta Stella, an excellent soprano, which, by the way, is not very well known by many people. You know that the average understanding of singers in the opera just falls somewhere between Callas and Tebaldi, sometimes only Callas. So many people are not familiar with many other names, and I think it is very worth to talk about a very, very, very solid Italian soprano. She built her career mostly in the at the end of the 50s and 60s. And she was a very interesting soprano because while I was looking for information on her, I found that she sang many of the operatic roles, many of the greatest soprano roles. So now I am very interested in listening to more of hers. Unfortunately, as it is also the case for many singers of this generation or of previous generation prior to the development of technology, there are not uh, attractive video recordings. In fact, the video or the recording that I am going to be suggesting is in fact a static image on the screen while in the background the recording is playing. But and I know that most people like to be very visual, and I think that in cases like this, when there is a version that is really worth from a soprano that is really worth listening, it really doesn't matter if the image on the screen is static, because the quality of the sound, of the quality of the voice is what matters. So this is how I came up to deciding on talking about Antonietta Stella. I had already had the opportunity of listening to hers in Manon Lescaut, and I thought she did a great job, provided that Manon Lescaut is a very difficult role to sing. And so I told myself that I wanted to be sharing with you something that is also very, very difficult. And so as I was looking for some recordings from hers, I found that she actually sang one of the most difficult or one of the most challenging arias for a mature soprano. Mature soprano, why? Because not any soprano can sing it. This is one of the most challenging areas. By the way, I've been talking to Katia and I have been the talking or telling myself that maybe after this season 7 of the dissection of the most popular arias and the season 8 on the spectacular singing with coloratura, maybe we should go for a season where we talk about the most challenging areas. I don't want to use the word difficult. I will explain later why, but I think this is a good example of what a challenging area is. In one hand, this comes from a very mature Maestro Giuseppe Verdi, Don Carlo, one of his final compositions. So Maestro Verdi has come a very long way in building drama, in building the music, in developing the characters, and also many of the most popular titles from him have already been published. So he's in a phase of his life where he can take his time for building or for constructing or creating an opera, and that is the case for Don Carlo. As you can see, we are talking about the aria from Elisabetta de Valois, and of course we are talking about Tu che le vanità conoscesti del mondo, you who knew the vanity of the world, which opens, and it is a very difficult, just I can give you a quick advance of why it is difficult. You can say, well, she's singing an F, so how hard can it be to sing an F? But look at what comes later. We have explained many times that that the difficulty of the arias is not only a given note, but what precedes or what comes after. So the soprano has to be very assertive in the "Tu che le vanità conosces." Then she has to go for a low note, then rise to the middle of her voice, and then go back to a lower do or a C, which is very difficult to do. If you don't believe me, ask any mature soprano if she can do it that correctly, and she will tell you that she would rather deal with another aria rather than Tu che le vanità. Also, it is a super long aria and it has so many moments. certainly an aria that is needed for a mature soprano, and that would be the case for why I chose that aria for Madame Antonietta Stella. You will be able to listen to her in Tu che le vanità. You will listen to all those moments, how her spirit moves somewhere between sadness, pain, loneliness, nostalgia, willing to see the love of her life. And Don Carlo, if you have referred to that season where we talked about Parlando, Le Parlando season, when we talked about Don Carlo, this is an opera where there is a king, when there is a queen, here, Elisabetta, uh, here, the queen, and there is a princess, Eboli, of course, and there is the prince, uh, and there is also Il Marqués di Posa, and everybody belongs to the royalty. But in here, Maestro Verdi tells us about the human that resides inside of every people, even if you are a man or a woman of power. Don Carlo, at the end, is a very beautiful opera, but it is also a very, very sad one. I am leaving the link to this video in the description so that maybe you give yourself a chance to enjoy the very interesting version of Antonietta Stella. And if you don't know this aria, enjoy this aria by Maestro Verdi.